Okay, we're live. So welcome back to another episode of Mastering You, the Lifestyle Performance Podcast. So I've been really looking forward to this one. This guy has been on my radar for the podcast for a while now. And I know he's been really looking forward to it too.
Yeah.
So Daniel Beckitt, welcome to the podcast. How are you doing, buddy?
Thank you very much, Matt. Yeah, I'm doing very well, and thank you for having me on board. Yeah, like you said, I've been looking forward to this.
So I won't kind of make a hash of it and try and do it myself. But Daniel has a really awesome backstory, and it's really interesting story to how he came into where he is today. He's an expert in, I guess, how would you describe it, Daniel? It's a combination of high performance, healing, and how do you generally do when someone asks you what do you do? How do you answer that without
what's the mission statement?
Yeah.
So I run a company called Boreas Healing. Just as a quick backstory to that, Boreas is the Greek god of north winds and cold, and that makes sense to what I do as a Wim Hoff instructor, which engages cold immersion, breathing, and mindset. So we empower people to overcome fear, stress, and anxiety through natural methods that make you the most powerful you. What does that mean? It means that with these natural methods that we bring in, we can investigate, we can go deep into our nervous systems, our immune systems, and our subconscious, and remove the blocks that we have in our lives that we may not even be aware of to lead our most powerful lives. Quite often we set all these intentions of having these plans, yet we keep tripping ourselves up. We keep self-sabotaging, and that's because of the blocks that a lot of us have that we are not aware of, usually from childhood traumas, small and large. And the techniques we use go deep into that in a very safe, controlled way, and it allows the body's intelligence to take over and just let's go.
Awesome. Well, so anyone listening, obviously it's powerful stuff. We'll get into it. We'll get into all of that a little bit deeper. And one of the reasons why I started this podcast is, and I think a lot of people will relate to this as well, is to understand like what got you to, into all of this in the first place. And also because your background is quite similar to mine. You were like a personal trainer. Yeah. So I think it's really interesting to hear, like, what was it that, was there any point in time where you sort of had like any light bulb moments, or you like opened up to this world? My previous podcast actually was on, I wanted to sell people on personal development.
Right.
Because what I find is there's almost like two extremes. There's like a lot of people that living life, normally and maybe struggling, but not even knowing this whole other world exists. Yes. Of self-growth, of healing, of personal development, of self-improvement. And then there's like and then for those people, like, we can come across as a little bit woo-woo and a little bit like out there, and who are these weirdos talking about breathing and, psychology and mindset. And so that's why I think it's really cool to share the story. Like I've shared my story a few times on the podcast so far. Most people know my backstory, and so, yeah, if you don't mind, just how did you get into all of this?
Okay, so just to give a bit of framework in terms of timelines, I'm now 38, and I qualified as a personal trainer about 7 years ago, and I really enjoyed it. I did it as an apprenticeship in a gym chain. Started to train within the gym, and then I felt a bit constrained by the rules and regulations of that brand. So I then went freelance with my first company, which was called Quantum Fitness, and I really enjoyed it. Some significant clients I had in terms of transformation, or physical transformations. But I started to feel like the tools that I had as a personal trainer were fantastic for the body and some mind aspects, but I could see the subtext within my clients. So they were saying I wanted to lose weight, but I could see there was deeper reasons beyond that they may not be aware of, you know, insecurities, self-doubt, spiritual maladies, all that kind of thing. And I knew there had to be a deeper way to investigate these things. But then I was given an opportunity to move to India for 2 years and be a strength and conditioning coach for professional athletes. So I moved over with Heather, my partner, who's a yoga teacher, and I trained the football squad in strength and conditioning for the Under-18s World Cup, which was being hosted in India. Amazing opportunity.
Yeah.
So that way of moving into a more holistic, esoteric pathway disappeared because I had this professional gig, which was like amazing. And I hadn't been a PT for that long. So to transition from
that's a big deal.
civilians to pros was huge. And it was an amazing experience. But again, despite being an amazing experience, something didn't feel quite right. I wasn't living in my flow. And incidentally, I've suffered from asthma from the age of 15, which has kind of been cured, but we'll circle back onto that with the Wim Hof method. And I had a massive asthma attack in India. So bad that I was in hospital for a week, and then I had to come back to the UK for another week. And I was sat in the hospital bed thinking, I'm back here again. What's happened? You know, I had the life that I'd drawn on the vision boards, you know, the apartment, the beach, working with professional athletes. These are all on my vision board, yet something didn't feel quite right. And it was almost like the asthma attack, the intelligence of the body, which I'll go to later. I believe that if we ignore certain cues within the body, our gut feeling, as it were, our highest calling, if we keep ignoring those pulls, we will be shown a lesson of how to stop and readdress. And the asthma attack was that. It grounded me, a bit like what the lockdown has done for many people, right? We've just suddenly had to stop. And a lot of us have to have been introspective. And that's what happened with me. And I was back in my apartment in the UK. I couldn't go back to India because it was the humidity that was triggering off the asthma. So I fell into kind of a bit of a depression. And I was like, how can I heal this asthma? I'm sick of this thing in my chest that keeps holding me back. And I went on Facebook and I saw this article about cold showers, how it boosts testosterone and growth hormone and all that. And the PT in me was like, yes, let's go. Did a 2-minute cold shower in November. Wow. If anyone's done a cold shower in November, they know what I'm talking about. I fought my way through it with a lot of resistance, which isn't the Wim Hof method, by the way, but I did it. And I felt great. The depression, the anxiety disappeared. It may have been momentarily, but it disappeared. So I just did it again. And the next day and the next day. And for about 2 weeks, I did a cold shower every day. And my depression had less weight. My anxiety had less weight. And then the geek in me, the science in me was like, look, there must be something to this. And that's how I found the Wim Hof method. And I did the 10-week course that they did, which engaged not only the cold, but breath work. And the breath work is powerful stuff. And then linking the breath work with the cold showers or the cold immersion is the mindset. So I did a 10-week course of that. And it changed my life to the point where I did an advanced workshop with Wim Hof himself in Holland. And then I went to the Masters in Poland, where I climbed a mountain in -10 to -20 in just my shorts for 2.5 hours. Still have all my fingers and toes, and you know, crazy what we can achieve. And I was like, this has transformed my life in terms of the asthma. It's disappeared over 2 years now. No medication, no hospital admissions, whereas before it was a yearly thing. And I was like, I have to get this out there. And then we started Boreas Healing, started doing the workshops where we worked with people from all different pathways. So athletes, ex-soldiers who were suffering from PTSD, from Afghanistan and Iraq, people with anti-inflammatory diseases, stress, anxiety, severe depression. We're talking, you know, suicide, and using these natural, powerful methods, we've empowered them. We've given people those tools that they've already had. So when you come to our workshops, when you're learning the Wim Hof method, it's not so much that we're teaching you new tools, we're reminding you of the power that you already have, the breath, the sanctuary of the breath. We've had it. It's the first and last thing you'll ever do, breathing. And I know this all sounds crazy, but it's all been scientifically backed now.
Yeah.
This is a scientifically backed method where Wim Hof, he did all these crazy things. So he's the Dutch daredevil, they call him. He's in his early 60s now. And he would commit to all these extreme world records. He's got like over 20 world records now, 22 or 23. And that's being encased in ice for under 2 hours, running a marathon in the Arctic Circle in just shorts and no shoes. Crazy stuff. And science paid attention because these things
meant to be impossible.
Killed him. Yeah, it's impossible. Right? So how can the body regulate its own temperature?
Yeah.
How frostbite?
Yeah.
So science got on board and went, let's test this guy. So they ran all these tests. Now, these tests are available on documentaries online, on YouTube, so I won't go into too much detail. But they found that he could consciously control his immune system and nervous system.
Wow.
Now, it's called autonomic nervous system because it's seen as it's a subconscious process.
Yeah.
We can't just sit there and influence consciously to raise our heart rate or to raise our cortisol levels or adrenaline. But Wim Hof proved that you can. And scientists said, yep, you definitely can control your nervous system and immune system, but you're just 1 in a billion. You're a freak. And Wim said, no, I can teach this to people. And that's how the Wim Hof method came about. So they brought in 10 people, a control group and a test group. 10 people who had never done the Wim Hof method and 10 people who had trained in the Wim Hof method for 10 days, a bit what I did in Poland.
Right.
And they injected all of them with E. coli, so a dead E. coli virus, which causes quite a dramatic immune response. The people who hadn't done Wim Hof method were all very ill for 5 days, your typical flu virus, 3 to 5 days. The people who had done the Wim Hof method for only 10 days, they banished the symptoms within 15 minutes. The worst they had was a mild headache.
Wow.
And that's when the scientists stood up and went, wow, there is something to this. And yeah, lots of different biological and neurological processes happen.
So I was going to say, could we get into that a little bit? Like what?
Yeah, of course.
Because I'm sure people listening are like, well, what? Obviously, it's not like it's some magical thing. This isn't what Daniel was talking about. This isn't like a woo-woo thing that we're just doing and we don't understand it. That the science is now proving it. The biological changes are real.
Yeah.
And so what can you share a few of those specifically? You talked about the autonomic nervous system, how we do have influence over that, and that maybe once upon a time was thought that wasn't possible.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, when you're doing, let's say, like your breath work, your ice therapy, your cold therapy, whether it's showers or the Wim Hof method, what is different about that to, why is that so powerful? What is it doing to the immune system to enable you to overcome something as dangerous as the E. coli?
Right. So there's a number of things that are going on. And before the Wim Hof method arose, many people throughout the ages have used cold water for therapy. You may have seen the Chinese monks in waterfall doing Tai Chi, and Russians jumping into cold water. And of course, breath work is as old as time. If you look into yoga and pranayama, breath work techniques. And so you can do those independently and get amazing results. What Wim found is with a certain breathing technique that's been utilized from certain yoga practices, teamed with cold water therapy, the results are then exponential.
Right.
So it's almost like 1 + 1 now equals 3. You can do them independently, you'll get benefits. Put them together, and it explodes relatively quickly. You get results relatively quickly. Now, so I'll start with the breath work and how that changes the physiology. So when we start the breath work, and it's a powerful method, what happens is we consciously raise our cortisol levels and adrenaline levels. Now, some of you, you're into fitness and exercise, you may be thinking, well, cortisol, isn't that a stress hormone? We don't want to be increasing that.
Yeah.
We're doing it, the difference is we're doing it consciously. It's called eustress, EU stress. And of course, exercise is that kind of stress. It's targeted, conscious stress. We stress the body, it breaks down, but then in the recovery, it builds up and gets stronger, right? It's chronic stress is the issue, not targeted positive stress. So what we do is we create this powerful breathing. We're taking in huge amounts of oxygen, which causes it's conscious hyperventilation, which sounds really crazy, right? But it's safe. We do it consciously, and of course, I'm there to, and Wim Hof method instructors are there to coach this technique. And what happens is the body gets filled with oxygen, filled to the point where it's 100% oxygen saturation. And not many people have actually experienced that 100% saturation. So right now, obviously, depending on fitness and stress levels, whatever, we could be at 95, 96, 97% saturation. Okay, if we're talking, we're healthy. But 100% is quite an experience. So for those who have, I think, obviously you've done some of the Wim Hof breathing.
Yeah, I felt quite lightheaded when
yes.
when I did it. That's
so you
normal,
feel lightheaded. It feels like electricity moving through. You're on fire.
Yeah.
Your extremities can tingle. You're charging your batteries. There's no, you can't go beyond 100%, right? And through this, your heart rate is increasing. Your blood pressure is increasing. The body feels stressed, just like if you were to go out and sprint, right? But because we're doing this consciously, we're either lying down or sat down with our eyes closed. So all this craziness is occurring within the body, yet we are staying present. I'm coaching you, or you're doing it at home, but we're front and center. We're present. We're not panicking with this, because usually when you hyperventilate, you're in a panicked state, right? People who have panic attacks know this, but we're consciously doing this, so we're nice and calm. And what happens is that we're training the body through the breath work to remain calm in high stress environments. We're saying to the subconscious, I'm taking you to a stress point, but we're doing it consciously, and we're doing it in a calm fashion. So we're staying centered. But what happens is with the biology is because we're saturating the body with oxygen, oxygen is a tremendous healer, right? So it's like when you get injured and you put a heat compress on your knee, for example, it's because it increases the blood circulation. And what's in the blood? Nutrients, one being oxygen. Oxygen heals.
Sure.
So the body floods itself with oxygen. Now, once we get to that point where we're fully saturated and we can't take in any more oxygen, we fully exhale. We let go of everything. There's no air in the lungs. There's no air in the belly. And when this happens, we can actually hold our breath for quite a long time. And you know this, Matt, you've done it. No air in the lungs, yet you feel, wow, I'm holding my breath for 30 seconds, a minute, 90 seconds. And what happens is when this occurs, the oxygen that's been flowing around in our blood then moves into tissues that have had oxygen shortages. It's why when we do this method, especially with athletes, let's say they've had trouble with their ankles or their knees. I work with professional fighters. When they start doing the breath work, it can feel quite painful. It's because the body's intelligence is taking over and it's shuttling that oxygen to those pain points. And it's about not trying to suppress the pain, but be comfortable within the discomfort. That's how we heal. We have to move through the pain, and we do it in a controlled way.
Sure.
And so when we go into these breath states and we let go of all the oxygen and we hold our breath, our CO2 rises. So basically what we're doing is we're coaching the body to be adaptable and focused in oxygen deprivation zones. It is similar to going into a hyperbaric diastolic chamber, pressure chamber,
Okay.
or doing altitude training.
Right.
You're increasing the chain of efficiency within the respiratory system. So not only does that allow the body to be more resilient to stress and increase athletic performance, but because you are in a mindful state, either lying down or sat cross-legged, going into these stress states, but you're remaining calm, the body remembers how calm you were during these high stress states. It links it. High stress in the, you're calm in the mind.
Mm.
And you know, we reinforce those links, right? And the cold water does the same. Freezing cold, the body gets in, we coach you to that point, we breathe into that because the breathing helps with the focus.
Yeah.
Body thinks, oh my God, it goes into fight or flight, but what we've practiced in the breathing, calm, calm. We center our breath, we're in ice, yet we are calm. The body remembers this. And so with repeated exposure to the breathing and the ice, just like exercise, we get stronger and stronger. The body remembers the calm, how we say the calm within the storm. So that ice, it doesn't have to be an ice bath. It could be an argument in your relationship. It could be a deadline at work. It could be COVID-19.
Yeah.
There's still stress in our external environment. We can't change that. There's only certain things we can control. But what we can control is how we react to those external stresses.
Yeah, you mentioned the word centeredness like 3 or 4 times, and that kind of summarizes a lot of it, right? The ability to, at will, being able to stay centered when in times of stress, and like you say, there's lots of people right now are experiencing lots of anxiety, fear, stress. I think online, just particularly what's going on in the world, outside of just COVID-19, there's lots of reactive behaviors and people getting, and so the ability to stay calm and stress it is quite a superpower, isn't it?
Yes, it is. It's amazing. If we look back on our lives in the times that we panic, it's a human response, right? And fear, a very human, natural response. If we look back at those times when we could have made important decisions in our lives, the next step in a relationship, a job promotion, starting a new business, yet we've been held back because of fear, because we start listening to the monkey mind. It starts amygdala is engaged and we're just, oh my God, a rabbit in headlights. Now imagine moving back into those points, but remaining calm and objective. And yes, feeling the pain, the fear, feeling that fear, but instead of it controlling us, we acknowledge it, but we say, thank you for giving me these signals of these perceived threats. However, I'm going to engage the prefrontal cortex, the captain of my ship, and I'm still going to make that decision. But you can do that now.
Yeah. Okay. So someone listening to this, and wants to start feeling some of the benefits, maybe you're listening to this and you are struggling with stress, anxiety, fear, and you're wanting to get some, let's say, some quick wins, just to kind of a little practice you can do each day just to start. Obviously, that, like everything, you can, there's more and more and more and more you can learn and do.
Yes.
But just like exercise or nutrition, what's something people can start to do just on a daily basis, just to start, just almost just kind of experimenting with what the benefits can hold?
So, yeah, I mean, people can start with the breath work.
Yeah.
Now, there are safety issues with the breath work because it's such a powerful technique. We need to be really careful with how we approach the breath work. It's very safe, it's very controlled, yet we need to be conscious and aware. I would also say that just developing, so not even talking about the Wim Hof method here, developing diaphragmatic breathing and breathing into the belly. We say that the breath is our sanctuary, that you're never too busy to take a deep breath. Now, many of us, I think it's something like 90% of the Western population, we breathe into our chest. And what happens is, and by the way, if you are a chest breather, it doesn't matter. It's okay, because you're here listening to this. You're alive. It's served you. But it's not serving you to the best of its full capability in the breathing. Chest breathing is meant for top-up breaths. It's meant for, if someone was to jump in and you get scared, you go, that's to engage the adrenaline because it needs to fight or flight, right? But what happens is, due to chronic stress in our lives and bad habits, we forget to breathe into the diaphragm. Now, for those of you who have young children, babies, toddlers, you can witness this. Watch how they breathe. There is zero movement in their chest. Their bellies rise and fall.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
It is, right? No, like zero shoulder or chest tension, nothing. But that's how we're meant to breathe. So there's a memory of this. We need to re-engage with that. When we breathe into the chest, we switch on fight-flight receptors. So even if we're at home at 10 p.m. watching Amazon Prime or whatever, we don't feel stressed, because we're breathing into our chest, we're breathing in a shallow way, which means instead of breathing 20 to 30 times a minute, we may be breathing 40 to 50 times a minute, even more, shallow breaths. So the body feels stressed. You may not consciously feel it, but your body's stressed. And what does that mean? You're anxious, you can't sit still, you can't go to bed, you're constantly trying to stay busy. It's the body trying to let go of this anxious energy.
Yeah.
So learning to re-engage with that diaphragm breath is so important. And a really good way to do this is taking your hands, placing it on your belly, closing your eyes, and fully exhaling out the mouth. Fully exhaling. And then when we inhale through the nose, we can feel the belly pop into our hands. So we're strengthening the connection between the breath moves into the belly. And what we can do is we can put slight pressure on the belly. And as we breathe in through the nose, we can use our hands as like resistance training.
Yeah.
So we can consciously connect the breath with the belly and feel the belly go in and out, in and out. And as we practice this simple breathing, so what I do pre-Wim Hof method breathing is, just to relax everyone, is I breathe in through the nose for 5, out of the mouth for 7. In for 5 through the nose and out for 7. Now, it's really important why we breathe out of the mouth. Or like, for example, all the Wim Hof method is exhaling out the mouth. Why is this? Now, have you ever noticed when you're stressed, you will just unconsciously sigh, yeah? You never do it out your nose, it's always out your mouth. Why? When we breathe out of the mouth, we move into the parasympathetic nervous system. So instead of fight or flight and active, we are passive and rest and digest. We move into a relaxed state. The nervous system calms itself down. And breathing out of the mouth, making the out breaths longer than the in breaths, engage that parasympathetic nervous system. It increases that connection. We do it over and over. You will feel very quickly your heart rate and your blood pressure decrease. Yeah. And as you do it, your thoughts will start to decrease as well. And breathing out of the mouth longer than the in-breath, you'll feel your belly flatten. And then once you're out of breath, in through the nose, and you'll feel the energy move into your hands. That's a really good way to ground. You can be sat in the car and do that.
I was going to say, so that's a good practice to do when you feel like stress is coming on, or you feel like you're struggling with like overwhelm or fear. It's one of the box breathing and diaphragmatic breathing is something that we teach at LPT as well, actually, and we often recommend people doing it if they're struggling to get to sleep, because obviously, you've mentioned the parasympathetic nervous system a lot. So, for anyone listening to that that optimizes things like digestive system. It helps our muscles and our cells regenerate, and ultimately helps our body kind of recover, doesn't it?
Yes, absolutely.
And so, so if, it's good to do it. Is it something that you recommend people practicing like once a day, twice a day, or just
daily? Yeah, always. You know, like I said, you're never too busy for a deep breath.
Yeah.
We tell ourselves that, but you always have a moment in the day where you can just take a deep breath. You could be at the car at the traffic lights, deep breath, and just suddenly become conscious of your breath, connecting to your body. So we make the mind and the body intelligence coherent. It's when it's incoherent, that's when there are issues. So just being aware of, oh, I'm not breathing into my belly, I'm breathing into my chest. And not berating ourselves or turning it negative. It's all good. You're raising your awareness. That's the start of change, right? Becoming aware. So we catch ourselves breathing into our chest or breathing shallow. In for 5. Out for 7 or 8. And that can happen when the traffic lights.
Awesome. And so you obviously with the cold therapy. So we had Sam Hendon on a few weeks ago on the podcast,
right?
And he was sharing his benefits, that because obviously he's been to your workshops,
yes,
well, and he's made like cold showers as just a daily part of his routine. So
I don't think he's missed a cold shower in like 2 years now.
He's addicted to it. And so obviously that's something that people could start to practice. Maybe, you know, it doesn't have to be 2-3 minutes, could be 20 seconds to start with. What tips have you got on someone saying, okay, well, I'm willing to try it, Daniel, I hate the idea of it, but if you say that it's going to make me feel better, or it's going to help relieve some tension or some stress, then how do I go about it? What's the best way to start?
Right. Well, start slowly. Okay. I led with my ego, and I did 2 minutes. No, 3 minutes. I started with. When you start with the Wim Hof method, they suggest 10 seconds. So it was like hell, and I was fighting and resisting. Which that's what you don't do. You control the breath, and you learn that on our workshops. But start slow. So start with a hot shower and say, you know what? I'm just going to put it onto cold for 10 seconds.
Okay. For
one deep breath. And you may struggle at first because you do switch on the fight-flight response, and you know that cold water, but you, as quickly as possible, take the in breath through the nose and out through the mouth.
I was going to say, so the breath would be the diaphragmatic breath.
The diaphragmatic breath. So in the cold shower, you can put the hands on the belly.
Yeah.
So, or you can slowly taper the water down to a cooler temperature. So you don't have to go all out cold. You can maybe do halfway for 10 seconds. Maybe you can start it on your legs, for example, because your chest feels too sensitive. You're always going to get benefits. It's getting comfortable with uncomfortable and knowing that all is well. So we start slowly. So maybe for the first week after your hot shower, you do a cold shower for 10 seconds or 5 seconds. And then the week later, you double it. And then the week after that, you double it again to where you can do it for 2 minutes. 2 minutes is the optimum time for a cold shower to really get the benefits. But you can build up to that, whether that takes you a month or 6 months. But people that come onto our workshops, some of them have never done a cold shower before, and they get into an ice bath.
Wow.
Because it's the breath that leads you there. And, you know, we discussed about this before, but I'd love to do a Wim Hof method breathwork session with your members. So I know I've done other breathwork, but actually just showing you the introduction to the Wim Hof method breathwork. I won't do it now because there's quite processes and T's and C's that we have to tick off and stuff. But if you're interested, that stuff is online. Wim Hof has an app that you can use. But because the cold shower may feel so alien, like right now, it's like, what the hell, ice bath? But when you do the breathing, it makes sense. And you've experienced it, right? When after you've done maybe minimum of 3 rounds, you do feel more centered, more focused, and more relaxed. It doesn't seem as crazy. So that's what we would typically do. You wake up in the morning, you do the 3 rounds of the Wim Hof method breathing, then you have the cold shower because you're more centered. Because the Wim Hof method as well changes the alkalinity of the system, which means it changes the way we perceive pain on the nerve endings.
And on that, because one thing we know about oxygenating the body is it helps reduce inflammation as well, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So if you are struggling with pain, ultimately inflammation is what causes most pain, is most physical pain.
Yeah.
So if you are experiencing that, that's again another real benefit to it.
Well, yeah, the asthma that I had is an autoimmune disease,
Yeah.
and it's based on inflammation. What is it? Something like 90% of all diseases are lifestyle based, and most of them are due to some form of inflammation.
Yeah.
The Wim Hof method directly targets inflammation. We've had people with MS come to our workshops, and we've had benefits and still do the Wim Hof method. Arthritis as well. So yeah, significant changes, and now I think it was a year or two ago, they've discovered that inflammation is also linked to depression.
Yeah.
Inflame the body is, the higher chance that we are depressed as well. That's the mind-body connection.
Well, it's funny you should mention that, because you mentioned earlier about the suppression of feelings and past experiences, and one of the things that I've learned on my journey is how the suppression or repression of feelings or past experiences links to depression.
Yes.
When whether that's a suppression of letting out what we want to do, or what our purpose is, or how we feel, and holding stuff in, and so the ability to allow us to, what's the best way of putting it, but allow us to be, really just to be, and
bliss in being.
Yeah. What I wanted to ask you on, so because obviously we're recording this during a pandemic, so and I've been talking to a lot of my sort of friend PTs and lots of people. One of the things that we're not hearing a lot in the news is about what can we actually do to boost our immune system.
Right.
It seems there's obviously lots of talk about when is there going to be a vaccine, and but there's also lots we can do to help us if we were to get COVID-19. Like what can we do to actually prevent that? And when you're talking about being able to auto-regulate your immune system and things like this seems like good timing, which is one of the reasons why I wanted to get you on. So so again, just another reason to kind of start implementing some of these practices into your life.
Yes.
Is this is only going to help, right?
Of course, yeah. So cold water, for example, the body goes into high stress state, but remember, we are calm with our breath and our training and our mindset. But in preparation for the next time, the body thinks, holy cow, what did I just go through? In order to prepare for the next time, I'm going to increase my white blood cell count.
Yeah, sure.
It's very important for the immune system. If we continue to do cold showers daily, every other day, 5 days a week, whatever, you're going to have an increase in white blood cell count, which means your immune system is stronger. But I do have to add that if you are feeling ill, whether it's COVID-19 or a cold, don't do the cold showers, because the cold showers is a stressor.
Yeah.
But when you're ill, the body's already stressed. It's a bit like exercise, right? If you're really ill, back off the exercise, rest, allow the body to get stronger, then get back on. So if you're feeling ill, stay away from the cold. If you're not, it's a great time to use it as a primer to build up that foundation of the immune system.
I think that's a really good point, because I think there's this sort of connotation for a lot of people where stress is always a bad thing. Yeah. But ultimately it works. It's like the yin and yang thing. It's exercise, sunlight, whether it's nutritional, there's lots of good stressors that we really need. The key is understanding the balance and having the self-awareness to, like you say, because if you ask someone, are you stressed? Sometimes people say yeah, but sometimes a lot of people will say no, I'm not stressed, but not realizing that actually your nervous system and your body is stressed. If you were to try and do some sort of movement pattern, you might find that actually your body doesn't want to move, because obviously when your body gets stressed, it gets tight and the muscles tighten up. One of my first experiences of breath work and diaphragmatic breathing, it was probably a good 6 years ago now when I first was introduced to box breathing.
Right.
And I had a bit of a lower back problem for a few weeks, and probably more than that, a month or two. And we were taken through box breathing, and it was really crazy. Yeah, within half an hour, maybe not even that back problem that had been with me for 4 or 5 weeks kind of just went, and it didn't come back. And it really showed me just how the power of reducing inflammation. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah, I mean, we take the breath for granted, right? We don't even think about it. It's just something that happens. And we do all these things to improve ourselves with exercise, nutrition, books, courses. And of course, these are amazing things, and we should continue to do that. But without the breath, none of that can occur, because we die. But we take it for granted. You get the breath right, that is, you strip everything back. You get the breath right, and then build from the breath. It's an exponential effect. Like I say, everything just increases. The breath work, when you're engaged with it, we're talking Wim Hoff method breath work now. What happens is, and this occurs with the healing aspect, is it changes the brainwave frequency. So right now we're probably in beta or mid to high beta. We're here, we're having a conversation. There might be some other thoughts in our head. We're aware of our surroundings. But as we breathe, and with my breathing, I use a drum simply to increase that frequency. We move into theta brainwave states and sometimes higher. And theta is the dreamlike state.
Right. Okay.
What happens is, when we're in theta states, we're opening. It's very safe, but we're opening the door to the subconscious. What was unseen can now be seen, and that's how we can create true healing. Because that saying, ignorance is bliss, right?
Yeah.
Well, it isn't. Sometimes you don't want to hear about it or see it, but what is unknown within the subconscious will present itself in our lives. It will keep playing out that script, that narrative, until we open the door to the subconscious, see what that pain point was. Sometimes it is an uncomfortable memory, a memory from our childhood, for example. But once we see it, we can then address it correctly. The breath work and the meditation gets to the root of the problem and allows the body to release. And why a lot of the issues that we work through are childhood issues. Children are in a brainwave state of theta, so the dreamlike state, from 0 to 7. They're pretty much constantly in that state. And when you're in that state, you're highly receptive. It's in the same state as when you're under hypnosis. They move you into theta.
Wow.
It's why children are amazing. You can give a 3-year-old a box and they can just create this amazing things because they're just in a dreamlike state. So they're very receptive to the positive. You are great, you are amazing, you can achieve anything, but also the negative that we may have experienced. Boys don't cry, women should be seen and not heard. That's programming. It gets absorbed deep into our brain, into our programming. And then as we grow up, we're playing out that script because of what we heard of as a child. We're insecure, we're not assertive enough, we don't believe in abundance, and all these kind of things. So we've got to go in, unroot it, and then implant or download more positive information into that brain. Because not only can we remove, we can download, we can install. So that's what we do with the breath work. I guide to release what no longer serves us. And then towards the second phase of it, we start bringing in the positive stuff. When you're in that brainwave state, very receptive.
You mentioned, so would you say around that, you mentioned 7 years old. So, is that around the age where children who go into adulthood later on, what age is it when we start to stop belly breathing and we start to transition more into a chest breath? Is there any studies on that?
This is interesting. There are studies, but I can't remember. I can't quote them verbatim or who did the studies. But they've found that children in today's times and of recent times, their breathing into their chest earlier and earlier.
Right.
So residual stress, chronic stress is on the increase because they're picking up patterns from their parents as well.
Yeah.
That's not a judgment thing.
Yeah.
We're all doing our best, but it's just children are very receptive and they pick up on energy. They pick up on micro gesticulation and how bodies move. And yeah, so typically before it would have been, children would have been continue to belly breathe, 7, 8, 9, 10, but now it's getting earlier and earlier that they're moving into the chest. And they say, I don't know how correct this is, but in terms of a child's moral backbone, where they create their own sense of right and wrong, really begins to instill itself at the age of 12, I think. That's when they kind of become their first stage of being an adult. They step back and they have their own moral compass. Whereas they're still kind of learning from their parents and school and that kind of thing. So that's why it's very important, 0 to 12.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things myself and a lot of parents forget is how much your kids pick up on energy, because energy is everywhere, right? And your mood gives off a certain energy. We all know if we walk into a room and there's something big going down, there's tension, you can feel it. And so it's no surprise that children who are in, let's say, households that there's lots of tension, that you can see why that can happen earlier, where the stress response is kicking in and the breath is not as natural as it could be. What can parents do? What teachers, what can people do who are working with children or have children do to instill a calmness into their children's lives? That's talking as a parent as well.
Well, being active listeners. We're all guilty. I don't have children yet, but I've always loved children. And Heather, obviously my partner of Karma Kids Yoga Therapy, she works with children actively with yoga and mindset and stress and anxiety, because it is on the increase in schools. That's why Heather is now going into schools. I've also done some breath work as well with some schools as well.
Fantastic.
Yeah, it's been good. And I think the first thing is being active listeners. We're all guilty of it, not necessarily just with children, but with our friends and family. Are we really listening? Or are we half listening, but we're on our phone?
Yep.
There's we lead busy lives and we can't be perfect, but it's having those moments where we can really, truly engage with our children and listen to them. Because when we're listening to them in the present, we can pick up on the subtext. We can pick up on what's behind the words. But that belly breathing of in for 5 and out for 7 through the mouth, do it with your kids. Do it as a family unit. The more people we've found with workshops, that the more people that do it, it creates an upward vacuum of energy, or like a cyclone.
I can imagine. Yeah.
Increases it. So if you do it with, sit in a circle, sit on the sofa, you're picking up some tension in the family. Hey kids, let's just do 3 deep breaths, and you'll feel the energy, because all 4 of you are doing it, or 5, 6, whatever, suddenly eases off. And you get that space of, it's not as bad as what I thought. Oh, I can hear the birds outside. All these things that we just miss.
Yeah.
Always around us.
Yeah. A good life skill for kids to learn early on.
Yeah, you do it now. You reconnect that, because obviously the younger you are, the faster you're going to remember that diaphragm breathing. Kids pick it up incredibly, way better than us adults.
Yeah.
That's why they learn so quickly. If you can instill that now, what a tool.
Yeah.
What a tool. Growing up, when they have to face peer pressure, exams, they're centered, they're strong. Yeah, such a beneficial tool.
Yeah, I mean, just on that, how quickly kids pick things up. I recently finished, Dr. Steve Peters, who wrote the Chin Paradox. Well, he wrote a follow-up book for children.
Right.
And it is fantastic. It's very workbook-like.
Okay.
And you go through scenarios, And I looked at it and I was like, I don't know if this is gonna, explaining the chimp and explaining, and he does it really, really well. And and she picked it up, 5, 6 years old, picked it up straight away. And so in the book, it actually gets the child to name the chimp,
Right.
and name the human part, the prefrontal cortex as well. So the child can actually differentiate. And so when she's having a bad day, or she's had an argument with one of her friends, I can call her out on her chimp, and
Right.
and she will immediately be like, oh yeah.
It's great.
my
So that
chimp's
objectivity,
working now.
that awareness,
And
she can step back out of herself and look on. Yeah.
and so the breath work is almost like just the icing on the cake to that, because it's almost a tool for that, because it's a method to get rid of the chimp, and to actually enable to think more clearer, and to worry less. So you put those two things together, and
For sure.
you're going to have some happy children.
Yeah, so mindfulness is obviously incredibly important. It's on the increase, which is a good thing. But when you apply breath work with mindfulness, breath work accelerates mindfulness. It gets you there faster, because you can still be in your head when you're trying to become mindful or objective. There's still 1,000 things going on. But those deep breaths quieten your mind in order to become objective and see the bigger picture. Do both.
Yeah, I think that's probably a good place to kind of sort of finish there. Like for me personally, having the awareness of your state of mind is I don't know if you would agree, but it's one of the best sort of super life skills you can have, because when you're just going about your day-to-day life, and you're feeling maybe just not quite right, or you're feeling a bit tense or a bit stressed, and you're not acknowledging what state of mind you have. You're just in it. And then you can be like, this isn't a good state of mind. What if you don't have a few tools to go, like I know personally from doing all the personal development work, okay, I haven't exercised today. I haven't done my walk. I haven't done any breath work. I haven't done my rehab work, or I haven't done any journaling. Journaling's a big one for me, just kind of clearing my head. And you do the thing, or it could be nutrition. Sometimes I'll have the right meal, have a good quality meal, and it would just get my state of mind, be like, okay, I'm good now. I can do the thing. If you're working, or you're trying to work on a complex task or a new project, and it's just like your mind just doesn't want to do it. You want to do it. You need to get it done. You've got a deadline, but your mind doesn't want to do it. The worst thing you can do is just try harder. It's like pushing a large rock up a hill. It's
like a square peg into a round hole.
Yeah. And so it really hit me actually when the I am your guru, or I'm not your guru, Tony Robbins.
Yeah.
I think on his Netflix documentary, I think it really hit me the powers he uses, that state of mind, because someone asked him, how do you do 8 or 10 hours of speaking? And like, if you've ever seen him speak, like he's very powerful and he puts so much energy into it. How do you do that for 8-10 hours? And he's like, I get myself in the right state of mind. And he has this whole system before he does ice cold plunges, I think like an hour before he goes onto stage. He does some heat therapy as well. He does some breath work, and then he uses a rebounder before he goes onto the stage, just to kind of get the energy up.
Yeah.
And then I think he takes maybe like 1 or 2 breaks during the 10-hour period, and he'll get back on that rebounder before. And so he knows how to manage his energy. And he knows that because he's got that self-awareness to know when his energy is dipping down. And so, if you can take one thing from this podcast, it's whether you have to put notifications on your phone to remind you, but just checking in a few times a day and say, wonder where my energy is, where's my state of mind, and if it's not good, what can I do right now to flip it back?
Yeah, I have a timer on my watch that vibrates, and it's just a shortcut button. When I press that button, it's 3 minutes. I use that for my cold showers as well. But if I'm enjoying my day and I feel like I'm too much in my head, and I've got a moment, maybe I'm in the car, that's my 3 minutes. I pull over, I press the button, I close my eyes, I focus on my breath. Those 3 minutes are so valuable. If you haven't got 3 minutes, do 1 minute. Do 30 seconds, do one breath. It is so valuable. I cannot stress it enough that, you know, we are way more powerful than what we think. We listen to the ego, we listen to the fear mongering. But you've got this.
Yeah.
We've got this. Take it back to the breath.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a really good place to kind of finish up, Daniel. So I really, really appreciate your time today, and I hope everyone listening has really enjoyed listening to all your advice. So, well, fingers crossed, we're going to be coming out of pandemic times quite soon. Have you got any workshops lined up? Have you got any events coming up that you can share with anyone listening in at the moment?
Nothing as of yet. I think after this call, we can discuss maybe scheduling something for your members.
Yeah.
This week, if you're open to that, like a Wim Hoff
that'd be fantastic.
One evening. But in terms of actual workshops, nothing as of yet. We're kind of in stasis. What's occurring?
Sure.
I can't wait to get back to it. But yeah, just watch this space. I will let you guys know when the next face-to-face workshop occurs.
Yeah. Well, I mean, just for anyone that wants to see, you know, what it is you do, have you got any links or any websites that people can go to?
My website is going to another server, so that's being done right now as we speak. Best place to find me is on Facebook, Boreas Healing, Boreas. I will be doing some breathwork stuff on there soon, maybe next week, just doing like a weekly drop-in class thing. But yeah, that's the best place to find updates.
Fantastic. Well, we're starting a 21-day wellness challenge next week. And so yeah, it'd be really good timing at some point during that challenge to get you on board with doing a Wim Hoff experience with our members.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Anyone listening to this, you know, you can we've still got some spots available to get onto that. So feel free to contact us on admin@lifestyle-pt.co.uk. And meanwhile, yeah, once again, big thanks, Daniel, and we'll be hearing from you soon, hopefully with some events lined up, and I'm sure we'll be doing this again at some point in the future. Thanks very much.
Fantastic. Thank you very much for having me.